number magic, name magic. The fuck is going on? Check! $1998, squarely between Squaresoft's most emo release and its most metro heretofore. Bill Clinton was in office and a lot of us still liked him. Between getting wiretapped by Mossad and having the then still living Mark Middleton let Jeffrey Epstein into the White House dozens of times, I imagine there was a fair amount of saxophone and cigars. August 7th, 1998. Snake Eyes hit theaters. Jalen Hurts was born.
They'll lock you up for assault in this town. They're really Jalen Hurts.
The U.S. embassy bombings in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and Nairobi, Kenya occurred and are linked to Osama bin Laden. Let that one sit. Welcome to Video Seance with your host, the infamous Magnetic Weasel. Snake Eyes, Part 2. I figured we'd go back to basics because that first one was a little rushed. Because it's not just the date, Charles Kirkland / Charlie Kirk getting shot in the neck. You know, it's not just the Powell Trump character existing. It's the fact that we've got the woman in white who is close to Charles, symbolically or otherwise. That could be, you know, Erica, worked for Trump before. We've got Trump as Cyrus, and Cyrus as a Latino that gets the shit beaten out of him by a dirty cop. We also have the Powell-Kirkland relationship. They were friends, and now there's suspect of betrayal going on there by the person that brings it to the world's attention that he has died. This is true in the movie and in real life. We have Powell being the one that breaks the news in the movie, and we have Trump being the one that breaks the news on Truth Social in real life.
Just received word. Secretary Charles Evans Kirkland is dead. Passed away at 10:48 p.m. At this time, I'd like to extend my deepest sympathies to the Secretary's family. To the nation. To the people that he so faithfully and proudly served. And, there's something else to say. And those that would try to bully us or to terrorize us, to divert us from the causes of peace and justice. I want you to know that in spite of what's happened here tonight, we are not deterred. Production of the Air Guard missile system will go ahead in accordance with Secretary Kirkland's wishes. Let's call the first draft of history.
In being pointed to Snake Eyes with the synchronicities of the method of execution, the time, date, and the involvement of somebody named Charles Kirkland, I think that's a strong signal that says, let's look into this deeper. I then started following the idea that the names were important. To me, that's because having written before, having been a writer, naming characters can be important. So I knew that kind of innately. What I did not know until today was that there is a very clear connection to Freemasonry here, at least according to James Shelby Downard, whose work King Kill 33 I have known about for quite some time, but never actually started to read it until today. We have a quote in here from the very beginning. It is certain that onomatology, or the science of names, forms a very interesting part of the investigations of the higher Masonry, and it is only in this way that any connection can be created between the two sciences, from the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense to me. If we're looking at all these Freemasonic themes in the work itself, then we can conclude if naming things is an integral part to Freemasonic culture, especially at the highest levels, basically what we're seeing here, one way or the other, is that the screenwriter and or director are Freemasons, right? I think that's the thing that we can point to for sure. Here's another quote from the early part of King Kill 33. An archetype of betrayal of the common man, i.e. the vulgar herd, has been and is going on, and the betrayal, which involves a great deal of fertility and death symbolism, is seemingly motivated by the endeavor to bring about syncretism in opposing principles of a mystic power, and to green Israel, rebuild the Temple of Solomon, and establish a one-world government. Okay, so all of these things are rolled into the movie. All of these things, the rebuilding of the temple, we have the Cyrus connection, the one world government, the all-seeing eye. This is kind of beyond the scope of this project now, and perhaps I'll keep following this trail, but to give everyone a basic overview of Freemasonry, one of the important rituals that is enacting is the candidate being beat up and killed by the three ruffians, which we see symbolism for that in the movie when Tyler the executioner beats the shit out of Ricky. So, one world government, we link that to the all-seeing eye. The all-seeing eye we know through Masonry is Osiris. Osiris, Hiram Abiff, the candidate, Baal, these are all the same person. These are all sun symbols. They're all phallic worship at the end of the day, sun symbolism, as is the pillar, which goes up at the end of the movie. The pillar that is erected having, corpses in its wake. It's built on death and destruction, and it's built on the sacrifices of patsies like the Scarlet Woman. This is the ultimate in erecting that tower, perhaps in erecting the great work. And maybe this is just saying to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. What's in a name? A name is a tool. It's a visceral tool that the creator has. It can be blunt or it can be sly. It can be accidental or intentional. I think that's one thing we all recognize in hack writers is when the names are like too on the nose, when they too immediately convey the thing that we want. I think this is more acceptable in satirical literature. It's also more acceptable in children's literature when we are okay with being like, hey kids, this guy's name is Sly McVillain. You know what I mean? I'm just guessing based on these name choices. Brian De Palma or David Knope have fun with naming their characters and perhaps do so intentionally. Anthea, the weather lady, the newscaster, the woman who tells the truth. She's a flower. Her name is Greek for flower or blossom. She's a flower in the storm. She exists in this reality as being kind of pure. And she's the only one. Tariq, which I mentioned, the one who comes at night, the one who knocks at night, or the Lucifer, the Venus character. He's the one who actually pulls the trigger. He's the patsy, the otherwise unknown Palestinian guy that they can stick this whole thing on. So Powell is the Trump analog. Powell comes from howl, meaning eminent or prominent. One thing that hasn't changed since 1998 is that Donald Trump is one of the most famous and prominent people in the world. The order might shake up depending on who's making the list, but this is splitting hairs. Importantly to our point, some of the people rolling around the zeitgeist here occupy some of the top spots. That means that for better or for worse, rightly or wrongly notwithstanding, they have some of the highest charges possible in the subconscious. The list that I looked up, the first one was Abraham Lincoln, and the second one was Donald Trump. Now, Tyler the Executioner, his first name is Lincoln. Lincoln brings up all sorts of assassination imagery to the base consciousness of the American mind, probably the global mind at this point. We associate it with assassination. So regardless of how you feel about it, Trump is one of the most recognizable names ever in human history, and this has been true since before he was president. So when we're talking about names and notoriety and bright, famous things, when you look up Jezebel, the first thing that comes up is the magazine, the publisher, which was known for bragging about putting a hex on Charlie Kirk. We're talking about things being famous or well known in the public imagination. We have the South Park episode that comes out right before Charlie Kirk and has to be pulled because it's too close, too soon. To me, these things don't necessarily mean intention. Sometimes they mean that there's a storm in our zeitgeist. You know, it's almost like Baal himself, Zeus, the storm god. It's our subconscious, and these lightning strikes crack through creativity into the real world, or vice versa. If things can be understood, this is a type of methodology. If things are floating in the soup of the unconscious, this is one way which we might be able to pull them out. So Jezebel is the name of the storm. Hurricane Jezebel, which is not a hurricane but a tropical storm according to the cameraman, and this name is an anglicized form of the Hebrew name Isabel, and is often interpreted as meaning "where is the Lord," a phrase linked to Baal worship rituals. Now Cyrus, as we mentioned before, being the king that would restore the Second Temple in Jerusalem, why he's being compared to Trump, because Trump just moved the embassy back to Jerusalem.
They all promised Jerusalem, didn't they? For years and years. I did it. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. I did it. Moved the embassy to Jerusalem, making Jerusalem the capital of Israel.
And he's sucking off Israel harder than anyone ever has before. That brings us to the character Cyrus, who is a criminal, a Latino that gets the shit kicked out of him by a dirty cop. So there's all this sort of parallels with, Trump and ICE. So we see all of this stuff. It's not just paralleling Charlie Kirk, it's paralleling Trump's second term. And when we put ourselves squarely in Trump's second term, a lot of this lines up.
Do we have another acceptable loss? I'm not on that list, am I?
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
I'm not on that list, am I?
Powell means eminent or prominent, and Gilbert means, I think, shaft? Like an arrow shaft. Gilbert Powell, therefore, is a famous shaft, or a famous dick. This whole thing is about phallic worship. Can you think of any famous dicks? I don't know, Donald Trump might come to mind, right? Or pledge, hostage. That's curious too. We've got a lot of hostage situations going on in Trump's second term. Robinson also, Tyler Robinson. The name Robinson, son of Robin, means fame or famous bright together. So there's a lot of fame, a lot of bright fame. Venus, bright. Bright light, fame. I mean, this all fits in with the theme of Vegas or Atlantic City being bright lights, shiny lights. And is this where David Knope and or Brian De Palma were getting name inspiration from? Were they specifically looking for things that invoked these feelings? Maybe. During my second watch through of Snake Eyes, I saw that the Gilbert Powell Trump character was actually the one to come out on TV and announce that Charles Kirkland was dead. This was true for Charlie Kirk as well. Donald Trump was the one who announced on Truth Social that he was dead. That's how everyone found out. If it was anybody else, there wouldn't be a sync there. There wouldn't be these things lining up. So Trump comes out and says that Charlie Kirk has died, but he posts a lot, and I just kind of accidentally saw this. What he was posting earlier he was yelling at Jerome Powell. 9:08 on the morning of September 10th. Just out, no inflation, too late, must lower the rate, big, right now. Powell is a total disaster who doesn't have a clue. President DJT. So, I don't know how to properly calculate that, but what are the chances that hours before the Charlie Kirk thing goes down, he would say Powell like that? Powell is a total disaster who doesn't have a clue. Now, Powell and Cyrus were two of the names that I felt didn't have like a high signal there. They weren't coming through very strongly. But Cyrus being, the one who built the Second Temple, Trump being the Israelis coming out and celebrating Trump as Cyrus, that potentiated this in a way that just wasn't there before. Powell coming out as eminent and prominent, and Powell being mentioned the morning of September 10th is also very highly unusual to me. And then we have the Scarlet Woman. The Scarlet Woman who, in the commentary from these, the Snake Eyes commentary is not Brian De Palma. It's a couple of film historians. And it's really interesting to me just watching them talk about things so superficially. Because, they know movies. And they're like, yeah, the Brian De Palma knows what he's doing. He made this woman red and fiery because it's danger, it's sex, it's blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it sure is. But, if you're going to watch that and not have any idea about Crowley's Scarlet Woman or the Whore of Babylon, you're missing big pieces here. Now, can I say for sure that that's what De Palma was going for? No, but when you look at all this other Masonic imagery, it doesn't seem likely that he was unaware. I mean, Crowley's influence is far and wide, and those who are influenced by him don't tend to shout it from the rooftops. It's pretty subtle a lot of the time. Digging through some message boards and watching the movie again, I caught what the red ruby was about. The ruby was a ring that was worn by the Scarlet Woman and built into the pillar at the end. So this makes a lot of symbolic sense too, because Crowley used his Scarlet Women as channels to receive channeled information from various entities. He would discard them when he was done with them. A feminist he was not. We see a similar thing with the Scarlet Woman being used in this ritual. Her name was Serena, and I don't even know if they say that, maybe once in the movie, but that's of note as well, because she's calm, cool, collected, everything you'd want from an antenna, a psychic channel for whatever you're going to do. But she has to get sacrificed too. They have to do away with her. Dunn does when he's closing up all these loose ends, and they literally build her, they bulldoze her with everybody else in the conspiracy, and the drunkard too, I believe. The Ruby could also be a nod to Jack Ruby, who was somebody very clearly in on it that needed to be sacrificed and made a scapegoat in his own right. Supposedly, what I just read in King Kill 33 was that a Jack Ruby is also something that duelists, why can't I think of that name, would refer to as a fake ruby, a Jack Ruby. So we have the Millennium Tower being erected, which is the great work. It's what Powell was striving for. It's his great work, if you will, and it's built with the bodies of dead Scarlet Women. The Woman in White, there's parallels there with her and Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk. She knew Trump, and at least to some degree, she won one of his pageants. I think was her first win as a pageant person. So she was in the circle before. And Julia Costello, the Woman in White, she also knew the Powell character. She worked for Powell. But Julia means youthful or Jove's child, Jove meaning father of the sky, or Jupiter, the Roman equivalent to Zeus. So we have more of this sky god sort of stuff. Costello is Irish in origin, and by some accounts means well-shaped, which could have been De Palma's nod to the actress herself, who is known for being quite beautiful. Or exalted hostage is another meaning for Costello in the etymology. There's that hostage thing again with Gilbert. We get hostage too, and I mean these characters are hostage to the writer and creator. That's one way to look at it. If all the world is a stage, these are hostages in the drama that we create, that somebody created, that Brian De Palma and David Nope created. Importantly, the woman in white she's not entirely without sin. We know that she's doing the right thing in the story. She's trying to tell the secretary that the missiles are bullshit, but she goes in disguise to do it. So she's not completely pure, and I think that is worth noting, even if it's what most people would consider not a big deal, to engage in a little bit of deception. I think when you look at things in an absolutist way, and perhaps even in a Masonic way, she's engaging in some sort of deceit. And Erica Kirk, who was already a millionaire before she met Charlie Kirk, whose intentions are still unclear. She's Trump connected. Her parents ran an orphanage in Romania accused of child trafficking. So it's turtles all the way down as far as the pedos go in this reality, right? It's turtles all the way down. And is that because there's a strong market for kids? Yes, I think one way or the other, there's a huge black market for people. But is this connected to ritual? I think the more you look into it, the more it does seem like it's connected to ritual. We have the Pizzagate thing, which it's a distraction. It's a shit sandwich, that was meant to make the public not look into these things. And then, once the Epstein thing came out, it was hard for people to ignore. And now, of course, you have people on the left giving a shit about it like they never have before, because it looks like it could be something that takes down Donald Trump. Well, I don't know about you, but I was against fucking child trafficking before Donald Trump was involved with it, even in, whatever capacity he was or wasn't. I think we can give a shit about this stuff regardless of who our enemies are. All these people are our fucking enemies. I want to see Bill and Hillary Clinton be questioned for this too. We're not getting that. I don't think we're going to get it out of Trump either. Anyway, they also had to make a point to come out and say that Tyler Robinson was found after a 33-hour manhunt, which I think has been debunked as not the right amount of time. But the fact that they had to say it that way, 33-hour manhunt. Who is it? Was it Kash Patel that said that? Yeah, FBI Director Kash Patel oversaw a 33-hour manhunt. What are the fucking chances, man? 33, in case you're unaware, is a highly Masonic number. There are 33 main degrees in the Scottish Rite, and 33 is the number of vertebrae. It has ascension built into the symbolism there. We have the drunkard, who plays a big part. He stands up and yells, "Here comes the pain," which is a reference to Brian De Palma's Scarface. He stands up and yells that to cause even more commotion as this shot is about to be fired when Tyler the Executioner goes down. So we have multiple distractions here. We have the Scarlet Woman, we have Tyler the Executioner, and we have the drunkard. As the woman in white is on her way to inform the Secretary of Defense that these missiles don't actually work. The drunkard has a parallel in George Zinn. George Zinn, with his pants down apparently, was yelling,
Was that you? We don't know.
"I did it. Shoot me, I did it," as soon as Charlie Kirk was shot, and he was being drug away by police. Now, there are no real interviews with him because he was caught with CP, or said he had it, or an investigation brought that out. And we know that these type of people are often the easiest to compromise. So is it also a coincidence that he was involved at calling in a bomb threat during the Boston bombing? You know, and there was a 9/11 connection there too. Yeah, so George Zinn is reported to have appeared in a Memories of 9/11 video where he recounted witnessing the attacks and immediately suspecting Al-Qaeda. So he shows up there. He shows up at the Boston Marathon bombing and now at the Charlie Kirk thing. So, I mean, is this guy just... Is he the fucking Forrest Gump of world events, of big, conspiracies, or is he a plant? And why aren't there public available interviews for him? There's this drunkard, this untrustworthy person causing a distraction.
1, shooters 2, Tyler's 3. The drunk who shouted the signals 4, and whoever was on the other end of that radio was 5. 5 people make a conspiracy, right?
Of course, Tyler...
That's Tyler! What are you looking at? That's Tyler!
Tyler, the executioner, doesn't actually execute anybody. So there's some things that are lining up there. Tyler Robinson being a probable patsy in all likelihood. He was caught at Dairy Queen. We're supposed to believe that he just killed a guy, the first guy he's ever killed that he remembers, right? Or he knows about. He's a Manchurian Candidate. Smart kid. He's just texting his furry partner or whatever throughout this whole thing. Being, cool as a cucumber, sending novels of text, and then eating at a Dairy Queen, where he's spotted with a Man of Steel Superman poster behind him. And then the coroner, or medical examiner, says Charlie had bones of steel, and that's why the 30-06 didn't explode his whole fucking head off like it would an elk. But, there's just so many things here that don't make sense. It's supposed to be too much. It's supposed to be dizzying. We're supposed to look at it and go, what about this? What about this? What about this? And that's what you see in Snake Eyes too. They use multiple distractions to confuse 14,000 people to pull this all off. Now, Tyler, as I mentioned before, is an important part of the Masonic Lodge. He is generally an older Master Mason that is put in this position. He's supposed to guard the outside, only let Masons in, collect dues, that kind of thing. And Tyler the Executioner seems to be kind of half in, half out of this thing. He kicks it all off as far as the public is concerned. Him going down is the distraction for the shot. And in a way, he guards the inside and the outside of the event, the threshold of the event. So when we're looking at this, all the dream imagery that's popping out of this, you have the Man of Steel here and it comes back here, and it's not necessarily like a one-to-one, but there's these repeating themes. I find there's another level here because the date is arguable. Like, that's almost like a glitch in reality in and of itself. Is it a 0? Is it a 9? Either way, it's really damn close. But I think I have a little bit of evidence that it's for sure a 0. There are some who have looked into it, zoomed in on the image and saw, how the pixels look and have argued that the only number it could be is a 0. I think that there's contextual evidence for this. In the beginning, we have Nick Cage on the phone, well, speaking to his wife. He's like, I'm going to be there. I know it's your birthday tomorrow. I want to be there for your birthday. I want to get there after midnight. He's gassing her up like that. And he's using his golden telephone. And who do you talk to on your golden telephone? I mean, that's got to be a line to God, right? Especially in 1998, where this was supposed to be seen as over the top, gaudy. How could you afford that on a cop's budget? A golden phone is just kind of ridiculous, but it's also symbolic of divine communication when we look at it in that light. And who is Ricky's creator? Who is the creator of Snake Eyes? At least as far as most people are concerned, it's going to be Brian De Palma, an unseen, unvoiced character speaking to Nick Cage, his main character. And Brian De Palma's birthday is actually September 11th. So to me, that's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing when Nick Cage is like, yeah, it's your birthday tomorrow. I know he's supposed to be talking to his wife, but on that golden phone, it seems like he's communicating with his creator, whose birthday is 9/11. So when we're seeing all these parallels specifically to Trump's second term, imagine my surprise when I heard that Trump got gifted a gold pager. Yes, his own divine communication, straight from the unprosecuted war criminal Bibi Netanyahu himself, criminal in chief of Israel, gave Donald Trump in his second term in February of this year a gold pager. Now, I know this is related to the pager attacks, but that is kind of just fucked up, isn't it? That is kind of a scummy, underhanded thing. But what are the chances during Trump 2 we'd see Trump with his own symbolic divine communication? Cage's divine communication, and I'll roll the clip. I'm so glad I went back and watched this, because not only, to me, this completely proves what I was talking about. The moment Cage picks up his phone and says, "Hey, baby," is the moment we see Brian De Palma's name flash across the screen.
Hey, baby, how are you? I was hoping to be you. Yeah? Happy almost birthday. Of course I'm still coming. I want to be there when it turns midnight. Oh, yes, I'm bringing something with me. It's a surprise.
I looked up how many days is it between September 11th, 2001 and September 10th, 2025. It is 8,765 days. I have not much else to say about that, but the fact that they're sequential, it seems like kind of a countdown. 9/11, 9/11, 9/10, 9/10, 9/11, 9/10, 11, 8765, 4. Strange, right? The connections between the Charlie Kirk case, you have the place he was shot in, the fact that it was public, the date. The differences are also interesting too, because we could say that Charlie Kirk represents a turning point in the way that assassinations have been done. In my opinion, it seems that he was a moderate who was thinking about, turning his back on the Israelis. And they can't stand for that. The one thing that they cannot tolerate is open dialogue and any leeway, any well, we could be wrong, maybe we did this incorrectly. They are balls to the wall. It doesn't matter if we're, fucking prisoners in the ass to death. They're terrorists. They're, it doesn't matter if we didn't give them a trial. They don't back down on any bad thing they do. That's kind of been their PR move. And it's almost like if they never do that, then people who aren't paying attention can never interpret weakness out of that. They can never interpret guilt or wrongdoing. This idea that they haven't done anything wrong is preserved in the minds of those that aren't really looking in too deep, I would say. Which brings me to another unusual point, and that is all of this is sort of built like a 3D eye puzzle, where the things that come into focus depend on your perception and the programming that you've been installed with. Charlie Kirk is essentially the George Floyd of the right, and it is a martyr situation where, depending on your preconceived notions, you can point to him and say he's a scumbag, if that's your echo chamber, and you can say, I'm glad he's dead or whatever. Or you could, is exactly what inflames martyrdom in the other direction, when the truth is always kind of somewhere in the middle, right? And the interesting thing about those two is that they have the same birthday. But I know it just happened. Yeah, October 14th, 1993, Charlie Kirk's birthday, and October 14th, 1973 is George Floyd's birthday. So, do I think that these people are pawns in a game where they are picked out for these reasons? Probably not. It's not just one or two things that line up. We have the date, we have the assassination, we have the drunkard or the unreliable pawn who is ultimately fated to die. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if George Zinn has outlived his usefulness and, we find him suicided. And that's just going to make so much sense to everybody. It's like, yeah, he was a messed up guy. He had all this CP and shit. So like, and even, those people can be manipulated and driven to suicide. So just because it did or didn't go down that way doesn't mean he wasn't being used for this purpose. I mean, he seems to be popping up in all these places. It's crazy. The whole thing being about real estate and construction, and these are Masonic things. This is Masonic imagery. So if we apply the Masonic lens to Snake Eyes, what do we get? The all-seeing eye that people like to mention, and they stop there. They're like, oh, there's an all-seeing eye. Yeah, the all-seeing eye is a blimp. In the script, it's called, I believe, the God's eye view, which is an all-seeing eye, or whatever you want to call it. It's an omniscient figure. It has access to information that you don't. It's omnipresence in nature. The pivotal moment when Ricky realizes that his friend has been lying to him and is actually in on this grand conspiracy changes him. This transformative moment was given to him by the all-seeing eye. So when we peel back and look at the bare bones of this story, we can see Ricky as a rough ashlar, or an unperfected man, a base man who likes being in the sewer and rolling around in shit, and he's just happy to have his base desires met. He's cheating on his wife. He's got a gold phone. He is the unelevated man.
Arrange some interviews, get your GS rating, you're in our program. You're on diplomatic security, pays about double what your salary is here, and the money's clean. Man.
All right. You gotta fix my life later. I got money on this. I want to stay in a good mood, keep positive, because this is fight night.
Don't make Michael grow up here. This isn't a beach town anymore, it's a sewer.
But it's my sewer, Jiminy, and I love it. I kick around about 6 square blocks. Everybody knows me. I got the whole town wired. Someday if I manage to get my face on TV a few times, maybe I'll run from there or something. But that's as far as I want to go. Because I was made for this sewer, baby, and I am the kid!
I just want people to think I'm fucked up really bad. I want them to think I'm a fucked up person. I really would like people to say when I walk out of rooms, that guy's fucked up. Wow, that guy's wild. He seems like he's fucked up.
So we have him being forced to be a good person by the knowledge embedded in him by the all-seeing eye. That seems very fucking Masonic to me. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that when we start looking at it this way, it makes sense. Speaking of squares, if we take this as Masonic imagery, what do you do with someone who's gone astray? What do you do with your boy when he gets out of line? You put him on the square. You get him level again. They put Charlie on the square in Israel. It's like this doesn't stop. One of the other things that didn't make sense to me at first is why all these other names were highly charged or had a lot of meaning, and it didn't seem like the main characters did. Ricky, it just means Richard or ruler. But then I thought of it more on this sort of Masonic overlook, and if Ricky is the common man or the unpolished ashlar that, because of the all-seeing eye, is, given the grace to be a higher person or be forced to have morals, he can be thought of as the everyman. But why is the everyman a ruler? Everyone is in charge of their own will, I think is what this means, right? We are creating our own kingdoms. We are kings in our own domain on an individual level. And it's really just kind of like taking responsibility for that makes the difference between an unpolished stone and one that is worked intentionally. So Ricky as the everyman, he's king of his domain. He likes being in the sewer. The end, when the pillar is being erected and the Meredith Brooks song is just like repeating lines from the movie and being, super repetitive. One of the things that she just keeps saying is, "You'll never leave Sin City where you are king. Where you are king. You'll never leave Sin City where you are king." That kind of thing. I'll throw the lyrics up. But this makes so much more sense to me now that I've put all these things together. The common man, Ricky, ruler, whatever. Charles is also a king's name too, but it means free man. And to kill the free man is also pretty symbolic. And when we see all the free speech stuff that's going on, it also lines up with why someone like Charlie Kirk was taken out, because it's supposed to be controversial. It's supposed to inflame both sides and ultimately serve as a detractor for free speech. And Kirk means church. So free man of the church. A lot of this in Masonry is, supposedly a war on the Templars or the Catholic Church. It gets confusing, but there's some subtext there, and perhaps fishing this a little bit more, a clearer picture will line up. I'm just not quite there yet. Then, of course, we have Hunter Kozak, the man asking Charlie Kirk questions the second he got shot. His name translates to free man as well. I find it curious that Trump is being compared to Cyrus in Israel, the way we've mentioned before. And then we can look back at Saddam Hussein comparing himself to Nebuchadnezzar. There's all these repeating things that rhyme through history, as Mark Twain would say. And then we had Operation Shock and Awe, which is an analog for Shekinah, which is the Hebrew divine feminine energy that Yahweh would send to enact change. Seeing this is a metaphor for the storm itself. We have the sky god or Baal sending Jezebel, the divine wind, the divine feminine, to wreak havoc and enact change. And I'm very indebted to Freeman Fly for his insight on those type of things. He hasn't been active in a while, but the Shakana connection for sure is because of him. And to me, and that's what made me start looking at things a little deeper in this light. So thanks, Freeman Fly. Okay, so are there other precedents for this kind of thing? Yes, the most famous probably is the book The Wreck of the Titan or Futility, written by Morgan Robertson, which was published in 1898, which seemed to foretell the Titanic wreck. It was considered an unsinkable ship. They didn't have enough life rafts by choice because they were so filled with hubris and convinced that the ship would never sink, and it hit an iceberg and it sank in April. Now, this happened before the actual sinking of the Titanic. It happened in 1912, so it was 14 years apart. Now, this is an interesting case because, and if someone has access to a first edition copy, hit me up. Just give me a picture of the first couple pages because I can't find it. Morgan was basically failing as a writer. He was a big ship nerd. He knew a lot about ships. He was writing quite a lot about this in several different short stories. And when the Titanic crashed, he reclaimed copyright and rewrote some of it. So, yes, there's a lot in common here, even if it was about a ship that sank that was called the Titan. Even if that's the only thing there, there's enough there for us to pay a little bit of attention to. The question that I'd like to answer and can't because I can't find a PDF of a first edition copy is how drastic the changes were. Now, we don't have this issue with Snake Eyes. As far as I know, Snake Eyes might be the best representation of specificity when it comes to life mimicking art, so to speak. I've had conversations with several people that have brought to my attention how flawed we tend to look at these situations. You know, we as conspiracy theorists or those who just speculate about anything, the burden of proof is often tossed on us in a way that isn't necessarily fair. People jump to the conclusions immediately. They want a theory. They want an answer. They're not comfortable hearing, I don't know. There's not enough information. I have no idea. They're not comfortable with that. You know, an easy one. Nowadays, it's really not too big a deal to speculate about alternative 9/11 theories, but at the time, it was like you could upset people very much. Talk to anybody older who drinks the Kool-Aid, and they will probably still be able to demonstrate that for you. Oh, well, then who did it? I don't fucking know. I wasn't in the war game room. You know, I can just look at the fruits of their labor. You know, I can look at the stock shortages that happened and know that there was pre-knowledge. I can look at the dancing Israelis and be like, something's up with that. There's, you know, building 7 going down without a plane hitting it. You know, it's a meme. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams, but it doesn't. And what jet fuel was present in building 7? You know, just because we can ask these questions doesn't mean we have insider knowledge. Similarly with synchronicity, similarly with Snake Eyes, everyone wants to jump to the question of like, well, who did it and why? And it's like, well, there are several things here. Either it's a template for a ritual purpose, and that is being exploited, and we can get into that. Either we co-create and manifest reality in a way that we don't completely understand, and we could get into that. We have to be okay with uncertainty. We have to be okay with asking questions before we have all the answers, or else we're never going to get anywhere. Sometimes we never will, no matter what. Please tell me that every single one of these things is a reach. Individually, I'm there with you. But what are the chances all of this shit is a reach when it all lines up? Tell me what you think. Should I keep going down this rabbit hole? Should we make this larger? Let's get a conversation going, because I think this has a lot of depth, and I don't know if I'm at the end yet. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of everyone else. No one else will. You're our only hope. It's up to you. You're the chosen one. Goodbye. This is pissing me off because I should know it.